When Qianwu returned home, she began to rummage through the closet. Her father could not help but ask, "What are you looking for?" "I remember that there is a bottle of high-quality spirit recovery pills in the dojo. It can quickly recover the spiritual energy, and there are also pills that can stop bleeding and heal wounds. Where are they?" Father Chen asked in confusion. "What do you need these for? Didn't you just come back from the periphery of the mystic realm? Are you going out again now?" "It's Lin Bai. He's going to the capital to exchange and study. I thought it would be dangerous for him to go alone, so I want to bring him some medicine for him to protect himself in case he needs it." Father Chen wanted to say something, but he stopped himself. He saw that Chen Wu's eyes were filled with spring, like peach blossoms shimmering, but there was a lingering worry on her brows. His heart skipped a beat. He didn't expect that she would fall so deeply into this. Xiao Wu. He seemed to have made up his mind. Finally, he opened his mouth and said, "I've opened a dojo. People come and go. I've seen all kinds of people. I've experienced many things. You and Lin Bai are not the same. He's an eagle soaring in the sky. This small place can't restrain him at all. He won't stay for you." Chun Wu's hand instantly stopped. Her body stiffened and she turned around. Her expression was a little unnatural as she said, "Father, what are you talking about? I don't have that kind of intention towards him. We're just classmates, and he represents our school." Father Chun did not refute her. He just stared at her quietly. Chun Wu's voice became softer and softer, and she gradually lost her confidence. She was not only saying it for Father Chun, but also for herself. It was as if she could deceive herself and others by doing so. She hid her worry and concern for Lin Bai. "You know very well what the reason is. I just don't want you to get hurt." Father Chun sighed and said, "Although I am also very grateful for Lin Bai's help. Without him, I'm afraid that our Wind and Cloud Dojo would have been annexed by other forces long ago. But you have to be clear that kindness is not love. Now that he is going to the capital, even at the peak of our dojo's glory, we might not be able to match up to him, let alone now." Chunwu could not help but retort, "Lin Bai is not that kind of snobbish person. Even if he isn't, he is destined not to belong to this city. When that time comes, the disparity between the two of you is too great. It is impossible for you to catch up to him." Chinwu bit her lips and wanted to say something. She wanted to say something, but she knew that what Father Chun said was the truth. She and Lin Bai were indeed not on the same side. Ding dong. The medicinal pill that they had struggled to find landed on the ground, making a crisp sound. The room was extremely quiet. Father Chin patted her shoulder and comforted her. "Think about it carefully." On the other side, Lin Bai and Luo Qin waited for a long time, but they still couldn't see Chen Wu's figure. "What do you think Chen Wu is doing? She's taking so long to take the medicine." Luo Qin teased. Could it be that she couldn't bear to give up the pill, so she went back on her word? As soon as he finished speaking, a disciple dressed in the uniform of the Wind and Cloud Dojo ran over and said breathlessly, "Senior Sister Chanwu asked me to bring this to you." Luo Qin couldn't help but ask, why didn't she come herself? Senior Sister said that she was feeling a little unwell and needed to rest, so she asked me to send it over. Hearing this, the two of them were even more puzzled. She was clearly fine just now, but after such a short while, she was already feeling unwell. After saying this, the disciple left in a hurry, making the two of them even more confused. Luo Qin suggested, "Why don't you go back and pack your things first? We're leaving today. It's really too rushed. I don't know when you guys will come back. Say goodbye to your family properly. I'll go and see Chenwu later." Lin Bai nodded. He felt that this suggestion was not bad. After bidding farewell to Luo Qin, he rushed to Red Luan Peak, intending to tell Lin Rahai and Su Yun this news. "What? You're going to the capital?" Unexpectedly, Lin Rahai and Su Yun's reaction was extremely big. Realizing that they were too excited, Lin Rahai coughed a few times. "What I mean is that you've never gone on a long trip before. Moreover, you're the only one going to the capital this time. There's no one else in the school. Why don't we just forget about it?" Lin Rahai and Su Yun had always been supportive of Lin Bai's arrangements, not to mention his cultivation. It could be said that they had given everything they had, but this time, they voiced out to stop him. Lin Bai was a little puzzled. The dean has also considered this aspect. "In order to take care of me, He will also go with me. This? The couple looked at each other, seemingly unable to find a reason to refuse. Lin Bai secretly gave Su Yun a look. Su Yun looked embarrassed and stuttered. But you've never gone out on a long trip before. Moreover, you're not familiar with the capital. If anything happens, you won't be able to take care of yourself. Unfortunately, Lin Bai had already made up his mind. No matter what Lin Bai and Su Yun said, he would not change his decision. Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. Besides, with my power, I can run away even if I can't beat them. Lin Bai only thought that they were worried about him, so he was worried that he would go to the capital. He did not think too much about it and comforted Lin Bai and Su Yun. Lin Bai and Su Yun could only force a smile. Then that's fine. You take care of yourself outside. Lin Bai simply packed his luggage and rejected the crystals that Lin Bai gave him. Keep it for yourself. I have some here. Besides, I can earn crystals by refining pills. After a few words of advice, Lin Bai bid farewell to the two of them. Looking at his back, the husband and wife looked as if they could not resolve their worries. What should we do? He has to go to the capital. What if he run into those people? Lin Bai glared at her and said unhappily, I asked you to persuade this child just now, but you didn't do it properly. Su Yun didn't want to be outdone. It's not like you don't know Lin Bai's character. No one can stop him once he has decided on something. If you want me to persuade him, why don't you do it yourself? Forget it. It's useless to say all this now. After so many years, those people in the capital should have all left. After saying that, Lin Bai revealed a mocking smile. Those people have very high standards. They wouldn't be focused here. I think it's no problem for Lin Bai to go. It's also good to broaden his horizons. Otherwise, he will always be confined in this small town. The couple could only comfort themselves this way. After all, it had been too long. Those people from before should have already left. At this moment, those who had gone far away did not know about the conversation between the couple. Otherwise, they would have been shocked. His parents had always been simple and ordinary. They did not have any spiritual power on them. Now, they seemed to have some connection with the capital. After Lin Bai packed his things, he rushed over to meet up with the main force. The Dean of Education had been waiting for a long time. Initially, the academy did not plan to send anyone along with him. However, considering Lin Bai's outstanding performance, if something unexpected happened along the way, they would lose a good seedling. What they were most afraid of was what would happen if some of the academies were secretly jealous and wanted to make a move against Lin Bai. That would be impossible to guard against. After all, the grudge between Lin Bai and Bai He in the mystic realm was known by some of the higher-ups of the academy. Therefore, if the academy were to come out and interact with Dean Zhou, who was in charge of the manpower arrangements, Dean Zhou would be easier to talk to. In addition, the Dean of Education had a good relationship with him in private, so he agreed to it. The people from the 4 major academies were still led by the teachers of their academies. This was except for a few more students who were arranged by their own academies. As for the rest of the people, they were arranged by Dean Zhou. The group of people set off in such a grand way. Most of them were surprised to see Lin Bai and the others. They definitely have the qualifications. Originally, no one had noticed anything strange. Why aren't they saying anything now? However, looking at their current attitude, everyone felt that it was strange. I know. I heard that it was this Lin Bai who beat them up. Are you kidding me? Isn't that offending someone? A lower-ranked academy student is able to defeat the people from the 4 great academies. Could it be that he is looking for trouble? It's very possible. Look, Bai He has a cold expression on his face. If he isn't going to fight, what else can he do? The dean rubbed his nose and walked to the side with great tacit understanding, leaving the space for the two of them. Lin Bai really did not know. It's just that we don't have much contact with the Shao family. Could it be that the 4 great academies thought that the incident at the Sword Tomb was the work of the Shao family? Lin Bai's expression did not change, but he kept feeling as if he had heard this surname somewhere before. Bai He recalled what his master had said before he left. His master was Dean Zhao of the Sword Cultivation Academy, and because of that, he knew more than these ordinary students. You're not thinking of saying that they have some sort of conspiracy, are you? Bai He shook his head. After saying these words, he left. He didn't care about Lin Bai's reaction. Although Bai looked cold and aloof, and seemed very arrogant and difficult to get along with, in fact, he was not a bad person. He had specially come over to say these words, but in fact, it was a subtle reminder. He remembered that the group of people he had killed in the mystic realm earlier. Lin Bai was so engrossed in his thoughts that he did not even notice the dean when he walked to his side. "What are you thinking about? I called you a few times, but you didn't respond." Lin Bai shook his head. "Now that they've suddenly invited us to exchange and learn, I'm also surprised." On the contrary, the others were just watching the show. They thought that the two of them could get into a fight, but they didn't expect that Bai would leave after they got together and discuss something. Not to mention them, even the people from the Sword Cultivation Academy thought that Bai was here to settle the score with Lin Bai. They couldn't help but ask, "Senior brother Bai, why did you come back just like that?" Bai said expressionlessly, "What else could I have done?" "Senior brother, I think you should have fought with Lin Bai again. You only lost slightly in the mystic realm, and this time." Bai cast a sidelong glance at him. His eyes were like a 1,000-year-old iceberg that couldn't be melted. People couldn't help but shiver, so his voice became softer and softer. "Since you're so worried, why don't you go and fight for me?" After saying this, Bai turned around and left. The others might not be clear, but only those who were inside knew how terrifying Lin Bai's sword intent was. In the few days after coming out of the mystic realm, he did not even take his sword. Once he took it, it was as if he had returned to the scene of that day. At that moment, he really felt as if he had walked out of the gates of hell. However, this was not the most terrifying part. The most terrifying part was that he started to doubt himself. Was there really anyone who takes such a strike? Or was it that he was not strong enough? Bai did not know why he would say such words to Lin Bai. He had always believed that wherever he fell, he would rise from it. Lin Bai was a respectable opponent. If it was in the past, he would definitely challenge him again and again. But now, he was a little hesitant. While everyone was resting on the spot, the dean waved his hand at Lin Bai, indicating for him to come to the side and pass the sword in his hand over. "What is this for?" Lin Bai cast a puzzled gaze over. The sword was more than a foot long, and it looked like a cold light had suddenly appeared. It cut through iron like mud, and it looked extremely sharp. Although it was not as sharp as those in the sword tomb, it was still acceptable. The headmaster looked pained. He touched the hilt of the sword with a reluctant look. "I can't bear to use this sword myself." On the contrary, Lin Bai's expression was very calm. He might have felt something when he saw these swords in the past, but now he was a little numb. He had probably seen too many swords. Fortunately, the headmaster's attention was all on the sword. Otherwise, he might have been angered to death when he saw Lin Bai's expression. What he regarded as a treasure was worthless. However, he could not blame Lin Bai for being like this. After all the swords in the sword tomb were in his body. Even the Sword Immortal's Ruoshui sword was in his hands. "Now, I'm giving it to you." Seeing the dean's expression as if he was cutting off his own flesh, Lin Bai did not know whether to laugh or cry. "There's no need, Dean. I have a sword with me." The headmaster didn't say anything else and stuffed the sword into Lin Bai's hand. "Don't stand on ceremony with me. Your sword is nothing. It's just a piece of rotten wood. It looks extremely dull. It can't even cut vegetables properly." A dignified sword, Immortal's Ruoshui sword, was considered in this way. It was really. Lin Bai didn't know what to say for a moment. If the headmaster knew the true identity of the rotten wood in his eyes, would he regret saying such words? The dean spoke earnestly and sincerely. How many proud prodigies had been defeated by the word pride? It was a big taboo to underestimate the enemy carelessly. The place you are going to this time is the capital. Although you are powerful, the capital is also full of talents. You cannot underestimate the enemy carelessly. How can you not have a sharp weapon in your hand? Having said that, Lin Bai could not refuse the dean's good intentions. He could not tell him that the Ruoshui sword was once used by a sword immortal, and it was very powerful. However, even if he told him, the dean would believe him. "Then I will thank the director." Seeing that he has finally accepted it, the director revealed a gratified smile. While Lin Bai was talking with the director, someone in the team asked, "How long will it take for us to arrive?" It would take a lot of time to travel to the capital from Lin Bai's small border city. However, they would pass through some larger cities where there was a teleportation array. As long as they paid a certain amount of crystals, they would be able to use it. However, before that, they had to pass through the demon beast forest. As the name implied, there were many demon beasts in this forest, and every one of them had the strength of the Hotian state. It was said that there were even grandmasters. Those who did not have the strength would only be courting death if they went in. Even they would encounter danger by crossing here. Otherwise, why would people only with extraordinary family backgrounds or powerful strength cross it? These people could be counted on 10 fingers in their border town. Of course, there was another option, which was to take a detour. However, it was too far and a waste of time. It was unknown how long it would take before they could arrive. Third Elder thought that he was very powerful. Moreover, he had many elite members of the Shao family with him. Therefore, he directly chose the nearest road and directly went through the center of the dense forest, which could greatly reduce the distance. After the leading teacher heard it, he hesitated. Isn't it too dangerous to do this? Third Elder looked at him with a confused expression. What's so dangerous about it? It was the same when we came here. Didn't we arrive safely? Third Elder, you guys are powerful, so you don't have to worry. However, there are so many students, and they can't compare to you guys. If something really happens, I won't be able to bear it. Why don't we go to the periphery? It won't take much time. The Third Elder wouldn't give him any good face. He sneered and said, What? Are you still afraid that I won't be able to protect these students? If something happens, I'll be responsible for it. What are you afraid of? Although he said that, if it really came to that point, the Third Elder was a member of the Shao family. Naturally, the Shao family would come out to protect him. The 4 Great Academies presidents and the parents of those students would tear him into pieces. However, he did not dare to offend Elder Shao. The Third Elder said somewhat impatiently, All right, I have a large-scale teleportation array talisman here. If something happens, I will send these students away. A large-scale teleportation array talisman was a good thing. Moreover, it was extremely hard to find on the market. It was the kind that could not be bought even if one had money. The leading teacher did not expect that Elder Shao would have such a good thing in his hands. Only then did he feel relieved. The Shao family's disciple beside him was a little puzzled and asked, There aren't many of such good things in the family. Don't tell me we're going to waste them on this group of people. The Third Elder said disdainfully, How is that possible? It's just to deal with him. Even though I have it, I won't give it to them. After all, there was the murderer who killed Xiao Yuqin among them. When he thought of this, the Third Elder's gaze became colder and colder. Other than the internal members and core disciples of the Shao family who knew about this, the others did not reveal it. They only announced to the public that Xiao Yuqin had gone to gain experience. On the other side, the leading teacher returned to the team and announced this news. What? You want us to go through the center? Isn't this too dangerous? Why don't we go through the periphery? Although it will take some time, at least it will be safe. We can handle it. That's right. We haven't even rested during this period of traveling. It's not easy to catch our breath, but we still have to go through the center of the forest. There's no need to be in such a hurry to be reincarnated. There was a commotion in the crowd. It was obvious that they did not agree with this decision. The leading teacher was also helpless. I know all of your worries. I have also reflected these. However, the Lord from the capital said that he will take care of everyone's safety. Even so, everyone was still a little worried. After all, they did not want to joke about their own safety. There were so many people. Even if the people from the capital were powerful, it was impossible for them to take care of everyone. No, I still think that it's too rash. Seeing that they were dawdling and had yet to set off, the Third Elder sent someone to urge them. He said arrogantly, What's wrong with all of you? Do you still want to set off for the capital? The leading teacher hurriedly nodded and apologized. I'm sorry, but the students feel that it's a little unsafe. Why don't we change the route? The person sneered. Changing the route? That's easy for you to say. Are you going to take responsibility for wasting Lord's time? If you want to go, then set off immediately. There's so much nonsense. If you don't want to go, then scram. Such a coward will be a disgrace in the capital. Hearing those words, The crowd felt a little angry, but there was nothing they could do about it. In the end, after a discussion between the teachers and the elders of the academy, they had no choice but to follow in their footsteps. After all, an arm could not twist a leg. There was a layer of light green gas on the periphery of the demonic beast forest. It was so faint that it was almost impossible to catch it with the naked eye. As they went deeper, the green color would gradually deepen and become more and more obvious. It was the miasma that had not melted for many years in the forest. No one knew how it was produced. It was as if it had existed since the beginning. If one stayed in such a miasma environment for too long, a small amount of poison would be inhaled in the body, affecting the use and flow of spiritual power. Therefore, everyone had taken the detoxification pill beforehand. After that, they stepped into the dark and dense forest. The surrounding trees blotted out the sky and the sun, and the branches were thick and strong. Even if several adults joined forces to hug them, they might not be able to hold them. As they entered, no one knew that a slender figure was following closely behind. Demonic beast forest, huh? It just so happens that this is the place where your bones are buried. The clear and cold female voice was like the jade of Mount Kuan. It sounded very pleasant, but the words that came out of her mouth caused people's hearts to sink to the bottom. At the same time, the teachers in the team warned everyone, be careful. This isn't some hunting or field trip. You must not act on your own. Due to the large area of the demon beast forest and the fact that it was outside the four great academies' sphere of influence, they rarely set foot in this place and were not too familiar with it. Therefore, the third elder led the way in front while the Shao family disciples and some of their students stayed behind. The rest of them were in the middle. The deeper they went, the dimmer the light became. The towering trees crisscrossed and blocked almost all the sunlight outside. Only a few rays of light were left. It was as if they had entered another world. The other disciples did not dare to let their guard down. They were constantly alert of the situation around them. For a moment, no one spoke. It was extremely quiet. They could only hear the chirping of insects and birds, as well as the sound of stepping on the branches and withered leaves. Wait a moment. Third elder suddenly stopped in his footsteps. As if he had noticed something, he made a hand gesture, causing everyone's hearts to rise. Plop! A bird not far away suddenly flew up and circled in the sky. It was cawing and screeching there, making things even more frightening. So it's just a bird. Everyone could not help but heave a sigh of relief. However, it was still too early for them to be relieved. A huge shadow flew over their heads, bringing with it a gust of strong wind that caused their faces to hurt. What the hell is that? Everyone, be careful. Everyone hurriedly rolled to the side, and the neat formation was instantly scattered. Before they could react, a huge fireball fell from the sky and brushed past them. The scorching temperature seemed like it was going to roast their entire bodies. Everyone was so shocked that they kept padding around. The air was filled with a burning smell. Some people's bodies were emitting sparks, and their hair was burning. Lin Bai reacted in time, and with the blessing of Little Red's attributes, he was not afraid of these flames. Golden light and flames interweaved. The creature flying in the air was like a small sun, and the outline of a bird could be vaguely seen. It flapped its huge wings and rolled up a stream of heat that splashed onto the surrounding sparks. As if it had been stimulated, it suddenly jumped up to the height of half a man and licked everyone's clothes again. It's a Hotion 8th stage flaming bird. Lin Bai couldn't help but sigh. Their team's luck was a little too good. They had just entered and were already attacked by a Hotion 8th stage flaming bird. It was quite troublesome to deal with. A huge fireball descended from the sky like a meteor. Lin Bai leaped up and saw a huge crater where he had just been. He did not know if it was his imagination, but he felt that the fireball was aimed at him. The leading teacher hoped that the third elder could take care of it. After all, with his strength, it would be easy for him to deal with this flaming bird. However, the third elder said nonchalantly, "Their lives are not in danger yet. It is not a bad opportunity to take advantage of this opportunity to train." Although the bird couldn't threaten them for the time being, the pain of burning their flesh was unbearable for ordinary people. Just as the elders of the academy were hesitating whether they should take action, The third elder seemed to have seen through their thoughts. Don't tell me you want to nurture these students into flowers in a greenhouse? How can they not go through some trials and tribulations? What he said seemed to make sense. The Sword Cultivation Academy's disciples, led by Bai He, had already begun to pick up their swords to resist. The third elder's gaze swept over them, but he did not obtain any useful information. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to see if there were any students using wooden swords. Perhaps he could follow the clues and catch the murderer of Xiao Yuqin. Unfortunately, he did not even notice anything with the Sword Cultivation Academy, which they were focused on. The flaming birds spat out fireballs crazily in the air. There were trees everywhere. Very soon, they ignited. Thick smoke billowed. Lin Bai was about to make a move, but he was held down by the dean. Save your strength. The dean lowered his voice and signaled him to look to the side. Although Bai He and the others had made a move, it was clearly not like the power he had shown in the mystic realm. Everyone was not a fool. If they wanted to go to a place like the capital and they were unfamiliar with the place and the situation was unclear, it would be best to preserve their strengths. Moreover, there were elders and the others here. If they really could not hold on any longer, someone would intervene. Lin Bai only dodged and did not attack. Looking at the raging flames around him, the strange thought in his heart became even more intense. The flaming bird was indeed staring at him. The people around him only received a few small fireballs at most, but when it reached him, the attack suddenly intensified. It was truly extremely difficult to deal with. His gaze landed on the third elder's side. They seemed to be quite satisfied. The corners of Lin Bai's lips curled up, and a thought appeared in his mind. It was also to verify his own thoughts. He deliberately ran towards the third elder's side, and the huge fireball followed closely behind him as if it had eyes. The third elder also noticed the figure rushing toward him. He was about to scold him, but it was already too late. The heat wave rolled over. If he had not opened the protective shield in time, even the beard on his chin would have been burned. Elder, save me. Lin Bai revealed an extremely panicked expression. He pretended to fall to the side carelessly. He had dodged it, but the people behind him were dumbfounded. The huge fireball was close at hand. Roar! With a roar, a huge water dragon descended from the sky and blocked in front of the Xiao family's disciples. The fireball seemed to have met its natural enemy and was instantly extinguished. Only white smoke rose from it. The flame bird was most afraid of water. All fire-type creatures were like this. The water dragon seemed to have a life of its own as it instantly tangled with it. The third elder formed a spell with his hands. He was probably almost a half-grandmaster, so how could the flame bird be his opponent? With a wail, the flame bird finally fled. Everyone could not help but heave a sigh of relief when they saw this. However, the third elder's expression was not good. The third elder had planned very well. Looking at the moves of these people, he might be able to find the murderer. Even if he couldn't find the culprit, he could at least suffer a little. Who would have thought that this plan would be ruined by Lin Bai? What's wrong with you, kid? Who told you to charge around recklessly? I'm sorry, third elder. I was too scared, so I panicked and didn't know where to go. Did I disturb you? I'm really sorry. Fortunately, the third elder displayed his might and scared the flaming bird away. Lin Bai first apologized and then put on a high hat, which made third elder speechless. He couldn't get his breath up or down. He just stared at Lin Bai with an ugly expression. There won't be a next time. Lin Bai nodded and turned around, but there was no guilt on his face. On the way, third elder and the others didn't treat them well. They could have made a move, but they chose to sit back and watch as if they were just watching a show. Moreover, just now, he was certain that the flaming bird seemed to be coming for him. Lin Bai rubbed his chin, feeling a little puzzled. Compared to the third elder's dissatisfaction with Lin Bai, who thought that he had ruined things, the other students were grateful to Lin Bai. After all, everyone could see that the third elder and the others had no intention of making a move at first. If it weren't for Lin Bai's accident, the battle might not have ended so soon. Everyone continued to move forward. Before they had gone far, someone stopped. Did you hear any sounds? It seems like there are insects flying. Hearing his question, everyone shook their heads. Other than the chirping of insects and birds, there was nothing else around them. Could it be that you heard something wrong? It's just the sound of the wind blowing on the leaves. Don't be overly cautious here. We only managed to chase away the flaming bird. How could there be a new demonic beast appearing now? Buzz buzz. A rustling sound came from the dense forest not far away. It sounded like many little bugs were flapping their wings. The sound was getting closer and closer. So many people could hear it. It seems like there really is a sound. Everyone stared at the bushes intently. A fist-sized scarlet-eyed mad bee crawled out from the bushes. Its body was surrounded by rings of golden patterns, and the steel needle on its tail flickered with a sharp, cold light. It was as thick as a few fingers. It's the scarlet-eyed mad bee. This thing isn't big, so it's easy to deal with. As soon as the words left his mouth, the sound of flapping wings didn't disappear. Instead, it became more and more obvious, as if there were countless little bugs flying toward them. The people seemed to have thought of something, and their faces suddenly turned pale. This seems to be the guide bee among the scarlet-eyed mad bees. The abdomen of the scarlet-eyed mad bee in front of him was round and had a little arc-shaped black pattern. It was the symbol of the guide bee. The scarlet-eyed mad bees were social animals. Occasionally, they would appear alone, but as long as the guide bee appeared, it meant that there would be a large group behind it. It was easy to deal with one of them, but there were tens of thousands of them in the entire swarm. The needles on their tails were also poisonous. Once they were pricked by them, their entire body would be paralyzed and their spiritual power would gradually disappear. The steel needles could regenerate, so it was extremely troublesome to deal with. Even Elder Shao and the others could not help but frown. 1, 2. Countless scarlet-eyed mad bees crawled out from the bushes. The sound of their wings flapping in the air made one's hair stand on end, indicating that there was still an endless stream of mad bees swarming over. Let's be careful. Don't alarm them. Elder Shao instructed everyone. With his ability, dealing with thousands of them would not be a problem. However, there were so many of them that it was quite troublesome for him. Furthermore, the scarlet-eyed mad bees were extremely vengeful creatures. If their needles were to pierce their bodies, they would need to use special methods to remove them. It was a pity that everyone did not want to provoke the swarm of bees. However, the swarm of bees kept a close watch on them. Their compound eyes gradually shrank and their tails were also raised. Their steel needles stood in the air. It was obvious that they were the precursor to launching an attack. Xiao. Following the movement of the head bee, the scarlet-eyed mad bee behind them also began to move. It was like a black wave surging over, accompanied by a faint golden light. That was the pattern on the mad bee's body, and it was about to swallow everyone within. Run! Someone shouted loudly, and everyone immediately ran without any regard for their lives. After all, the combined fighting strength of the scarlet-eyed mad bee swarm was comparable to that of a grandmaster. No wonder the third elder did not even have the intention to attack. There were already a few unlucky disciples who were left behind, and their faces covered with stings. Lin Bai glanced at the corner of his eye and saw that there was a black swarm of bees behind him, densely packed together. Even the original surrounding was blocked out wherever the black swarm of bees passed by. Wave after wave, the black waves that covered the sky and earth, as well as the sound of flapping wings, caused psychological trauma to people. In comparison, the number of scarlet-eyed mad bees behind the others were much less. It was like the difference between an ocean and a small stream. The others were all busy running for their lives, afraid that they would be caught by the bee tide, so they did not dare to turn back. Otherwise, they would find that Lin Bai alone had attracted the vast majority of the mad bees. He frowned slightly. This was not the way to go on. He turned his gaze and landed on the third elder and the others at the front. Get out of my way. Get out of my way. The group led by the third elder rampaged around. They did not care whether there was anyone in front of them or not. They even secretly tripped the disciples of the other academies and deliberately pushed them down in order to attract the attention of the scarlet-eyed mad bees. Save me. A disciple of the Shao clan accidentally fell. He was about to be swallowed by the black swarm of bees. The disciple of the Sword Cultivation Academy who was running in front didn't mind the past conflict. He suddenly turned his head and pulled him up. Even so, the two of them were still in danger of being caught by the swarm of bees. The Shao family's disciple's gaze was erratic as he formed a spell with his hand. A flash of spiritual light tripped the Sword Cultivator Academy's disciple next to him. Under his incredulous gaze, the Shao disciple sped off into the distance. He was the snake that the farmer saved. Many disciples saw the scene in front of them, and their hearts were furious. Unfortunately, they couldn't even protect themselves and could only watch helplessly as he was swallowed by the swarm of bees. At the critical moment, the black swarm of bees was about to touch his body. The sound of the swarm of bees flapping their wings could be heard as if they had already been wrapped up. He slowly closed his eyes as if he had already given up. A hand suddenly reached out from the side and pulled him out of the black vortex. It was Lin Bai. He said indifferently, "Not everyone is worth saving." Seeing the food fly away, it was undoubtedly a provocation to the bees. The buzzing sound continued, and the entire swarm became irritable. There were even more mad bees behind Lin Bai. That person opened his mouth and was so moved that he could not speak. Lin Bai did not have the time to chat with him. After all, there were so many scarlet-eyed mad bees behind him that he had to deal with. Under the stunned gaze of the Sword Cultivator disciple, Lin Bai dragged the black swarm of bees towards the third elder and the Shao family disciples. Damn! Could it be that he has honey on him? He was so shocked that he could not close his mouth for a long time. He saw that there were even a few scarlet-eyed mad bees falling from the team in front of him. They did not attack him but went straight for Lin Bai. After the series of moves just now, the Shao family and the others had already run to the front of the team. Before they could breathe a sigh of relief, they heard a buzzing sound coming from behind them. Before they could react, a figure that came from somewhere rushed into their team. That figure was too fast to be seen clearly. Moreover, they did not have the time. This was because the Scarlet Eye Beehive followed closely behind. F***CK. Where did this lunatic come from? Get lost. Are you crazy? If you want to die, don't drag the Scarlet Eye Mad Bees to us. King kidnapped the Queen Bee, didn't you? The Shao family disciples cursed. They could only run faster, but they could not shake off the figure and the Scarlet Eye Mad Bees that followed closely behind. Lin Bai curled his lips. He deliberately charged and circled around the group. The scarlet-eyed mad bees were probably tired of chasing after him. When they saw that Lin Bai was mixed with these people, they thought that these people were Lin Bai's helpers. Therefore, they began to carry out indiscriminate attacks. The Shao family group immediately echoed waves of miserable cries. The third elder had the highest cultivation level. He ran at the front. When he heard the cries and howls from behind, he turned his head and saw that the Shao family disciples' heads were covered with bumps from the scarlet-eyed mad bee's sting. There were more than 10 scarlet-eyed mad bees on top of each of them, and the main culprit was, with a shio sound, it was as if a gust of wind blew past in front of him. A human figure could be vaguely seen, followed by an overwhelming number of scarlet-eyed mad bees. Damn it! The third elder circulated all the spiritual power in his body, and his body was covered with a layer of transparent water ripples. Then, he violently pushed it outwards, as if a huge wave had suddenly been set off on the sea, shaking the scarlet-eyed mad bees until they fell to the ground one after another. It was a pity that there was still an endless stream of scarlet-eyed mad bees pouncing over from behind. Soon, the transparent water ripples were densely packed with corpses. An unknown golden liquid mixed with black stumps covered the surface, which looked terrifying and disgusting. Those with trophophobia would probably vomit if they saw this. However, Lin Bai's expression was indifferent. From time to time, he would bump into the bodies of the Shao family's disciples. His speed was fast, and his movements were clean and neat. All of this was done without anyone noticing. The Scarlet-Eye Mad Bees saw that so many of their companions had died and could not help but fall into a frenzy. They began to specifically attack the Shao family's disciples, which diverted a lot of the attention for Lin Bai. Even the third elder could not take care of himself, let alone the others. This made the disciples of the other academies at the back sigh in relief. When they thought of the disgusting actions of the third elder and the Shao family's disciples just now, everyone felt very happy. They wanted to say good job to Lin Bai. He had obviously noticed this figure as well. He felt that it looked familiar. He suddenly turned around, wanting to see where Lin Bai was. However, everyone was in a mess. They were running and hiding, and it was impossible to distinguish them clearly. When the student beside him saw that he had suddenly stopped, he could not help but say worriedly, "Senior Brother Bai, you should be careful. Although most of the attention of the bee tide has been attracted by them, we cannot let down our guard." Bai he replied nonchalantly. His gaze was still searching for Lin Bai's location, but he did not see him along the way. By the time they had finally managed to escape from the scarlet-eyed mad hornet tide, the third elder and the others were already exhausted. They lay sprawled on the ground and their bodies covered with the scarlet-eyed mad hornet stingers. Their faces were swollen like pig heads, and their facial features could not be seen clearly at all. In comparison, the people from the other academies were in a much better state. Other than minor injuries, the most serious injuries were only a few stings from the scarlet-eyed mad bees. There were only 1 or 2 stingers on their bodies. This is karma. Let them be wicked. This is called retribution for evil. It comes at the right time. Let's see if they still dare to cause trouble in the future. Sure, don't say any more. Someone from their side has come. Third elder brought a few people over with an aggressive look and said with a vicious expression, "Was it you guys just now?" If it was in the past, everyone would have been scared by his stance and tone. But now, there was a big bump on the left side of his face. It looked funny and ridiculous. Everyone had to lower their heads and force themselves to hold back their laughter. However, their trembling shoulders betrayed them. Seeing this, the third elder and the others were even more furious. He actually grabbed a person's clothes and lifted him up like he was carrying a chicken. It was the disciple who had almost been pushed into the swarm of bees. The third elder's eyes were gloomy and full of murderous intent. It was as if he was going to eat someone. He said word by word, "I'm asking you, where is that person?" He had seen Lin Bai before, but how could he give him away? If it wasn't for Lin Bai, he would have been dead already. He deliberately showed a puzzled expression and said, "Who is it?" "Third elder, what are you talking about? Why can't I understand? Don't you play dumb here?" The third elder was furious. "He must be from your group. Otherwise, why would he specially charge into our group?" Initially, they were all fine when they ran in front. The scarlet-eyed mad bee swamp's attention was attracted by the people behind them. If it was not that person, how could they be so heavily injured? That disciple said innocently, "Third elder, how can you be sure that he is someone from our side? What if he is from your team?" The Shao family definitely did not see Lin Bai's appearance clearly. Otherwise, they would not have come here to ask for him. That disciple had made up his mind in his heart that he would not expose Lin Bai. The Shao family's disciples were flustered and exasperated. However, they accidentally pulled on the wounds on their faces. They immediately grimaced in pain and looked even more comical. "Don't spout nonsense here. I think it's you guys who lured the trouble to us. You're deliberately harming us." After saying that, he added fuel to the fire. "Third elder, you must attain justice for us. This group of people is really too detestable. We were kind enough to provide an opportunity for exchange and learning. This is how they repay us. You can't blame us for your own bad luck, right? Besides, we didn't see that figure clearly, so how can we be sure that he's from our teams?" The other academy disciples were muttering softly, clearly dissatisfied with third elder and the other's overbearing behavior. The moment he finished speaking, a strong wind blew over. The disciple who had been muttering earlier immediately flew several meters away and fell heavily to the ground. He suddenly coughed out a large mouthful of blood. It was obvious that he was heavily injured. The one who had attacked was the third elder. "You're too noisy. Moreover, you don't have the right to speak." Seeing this, his companions quickly helped him up, but they did not dare to say anything. Lin Bai frowned and said, "Aren't the elders a little too overbearing? You can't find the culprit, so you take it out on us?" The third elder stared coldly at Lin Bai and recognized him as the person who had ruined his plans earlier. "Is it not enough that you caused trouble earlier, and now you want to be a hero again?" Lin Bai was not afraid at all. He openly met the third elder's gaze and said, "We must pay attention to the word reason in everything. Otherwise, we won't be able to convince the masses. Although we're very grateful that we have the opportunity to exchange at the capital this time, We can't be blamed for nothing, right? A few courageous students from the other academies saw that Lin Bai had opened his mouth and echoed him from behind. That's right. If that's the case, then why are we still going? If the elders have any objections against us, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush and look for trouble. Although the members of the Shao family were powerful, they did not have that many people. Seeing that they were about to be surrounded by the students of the other academies, the third elder was instantly enraged. These insects were going to rebel against the heavens. What? Are you guys going to rebel? Don't tell me you want to make a move? If it were not for the fact that they could not make a move against this group of people for the time being, the third elder would have definitely dealt with all of them. When Lin Bai saw the killing intent that flashed across the third elder's eyes, he became even more vigilant in his heart. When he saw that the smell of gunpowder was getting stronger from both sides, the leader of the group also had an embarrassed look on his face. He tried to mediate the situation by saying, "One has to pay attention to evidence when speaking and doing things. Third elder, look at this. There might be some misunderstanding." Misunderstanding? Third elder's gaze was gloomy as he looked around the group of people. However, he did not have any evidence on hand. He could not convict them just based on a few words, even though he felt that this matter definitely had something to do with this group of people. He gritted his teeth and said, "Let's go." The Shao family disciples beside him were obviously unwilling to accept this. "Third elder, we've suffered such a great loss. How could we just leave like this?" Third elder did not forget what Shao Feng had told him. Now that so many things had happened before the murderer was found, he could only suppress the anger in his heart. "We'll talk about everything when we reach the capital. By then, can these people escape?" Upon hearing these words, no matter how indignant they were, they could only endure it. They would settle the score when they reached the Shao family's territory. After all, it was easy to leak information here. Moreover, it was extremely unsafe. Speaking of which, this time is really too strange. It's not like we haven't crossed the demonic beast forest in the past. At the beginning, we encountered the flaming bird. After that, it was the scarlet-eyed mad bees. It's simply too strange. The Shao family disciples could not help but complain. A thoughtful look flashed across the third elder's eyes. In the end, it could only be attributed to bad luck. After all, these demonic beasts had no reason to focus on them and attack. After the incident just now, the atmosphere on both sides was somewhat stiff. The Shao family members walked at the front and could not be bothered to care about the people from the other academies. Lin Bai and the others walked at the back. The two sides did not meddle with each other's affairs. "Where did you go just now?" A low male voice came from beside him. Lin Bai turned his head and looked. Bai he had unknowingly arrived beside him. He said casually, "Where else can I go? Of course, I was running for my life." Bai he did not believe him. He stared at him with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to see a hole in his face. "But why didn't I see you just now?" Everyone was being chased by the scarlet-eye mad bees. "You definitely didn't notice me in your panic." Lin Bai wasn't worried that Bai he would discover his identity. Even if he did, based on his personality, he definitely wouldn't tell the others. As expected, Bai he didn't say anything and turned around to return to his own team. Although Lin Bai refused to admit it, Bai he felt that the culprit was probably him. After passing through the flaming bird and the scarlet-eye mad bees, everyone's nerves were a little tense. Their faces were full of lingering fatigue. They prayed silently in their hearts that no more demonic beasts would come. Otherwise, it would really be difficult to deal with them. It was a pity that the heavens did not seem to hear their prayers. Just as the group was walking, they suddenly heard a scream. "What's wrong now? I think I saw a black thing just now. It looked like a hook." The group immediately became alert and looked around, but they didn't find anything. Maybe you're too tired and your vision is blurry, so you're a little jittery and scared of everything. The third elder and the others felt that the demonic beast forest was a little strange, so they just wanted to leave as soon as possible. Therefore, they had been rushing and didn't take a break. The cold wind whistled over. Fortunately, Lin Bai was already prepared. With a flash, he rolled to the side. A huge tail fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. The hook was covered with barbs and was flickering with a dark green light. It was obvious that it was highly poisonous. Boom! Everyone hurriedly dodged to the side. When the dust dispersed, what appeared in front of them was an incomparably huge scorpion. Two incomparably huge pincers made cracking sounds and easily cut the towering ancient tree in half. It made people shudder at the sight of it, not to mention the hook at its tail. It fell in midair like a knife hanging over everyone's heads. Who knew when it would fall down? They couldn't even react in time. Red-spotted poison-eye scorpion. It had red spots on its body. From afar, they looked like a human eyes, hence its name. Moreover, such a large red-spotted poison-eye scorpion was really rare. Its cultivation level was extremely high. A faint red fog erupted from its body. At the same time, the air was filled with an indescribable strange smell. Third Elder and the others happened to be downwind. That scorpion actually swept past the people from the other schools and directly rushed towards them. Seeing the menacing red fog, the people from the Xiao family were really tired. This time, it had nothing to do with Lin Bai. He clearly saw that the red fog was clearly heading towards him. Even the disciple who was the first to discover the red-spotted, poison-eyed scorpion was not attacked. Instead, he was the one who was attacked. This was enough to prove everything. Unfortunately, Third Elder and the others were too unlucky. It just so happened that the direction of the wind would change. When the breeze blew, the red mist would also shift. Everyone, hurry up and take the antidote pill. They had only walked halfway when the red-spotted poison-eye scorpion jumped out again. Who knew what the heck would be behind them? Third Elder did not want to waste any more time. He faked a move and threw out a few spells. Then, he took out a magical artifact. The rest of the Xiao family members did the same. Lin Bai also followed behind and ran away. However, the scorpion's tail could stretch out, so it gave him a surprise attack. It was really annoying, so he took the opportunity to sneak in while the Xiao family members ran forward. It made the Third Elder and the others miserable. The crowd was so flustered that they did not know where to go and did not pay attention to their direction. The place where they were running became more and more remote until they did not see the red-spotted poison-eyed scorpion. Only then did they stop. Why isn't the red-spotted poison-eyed scorpion chasing after us? Their expressions were unsightly. They were running so fast that they were almost out of breath. We might have shaken it off. It was not easy for them to catch their breath. The Xiao family's disciple sat on the ground without any sense of propriety. However, he accidentally touched something. It was a little dry, and there was a crisp sound when he pinched it. He picked it up curiously to take a look. It was a piece of skin. More accurately, it was the skin shed by some kind of reptile. Half of the huge black and white pattern was missing, and it was not complete. Just from the pattern, one could tell that this creature was huge. What kind of animal skin is this? Judging from the pattern, it should be a snake. Moreover, it has been around for a very long time. Even the shed skin is this big. One can imagine how terrifying the original body is. A disciple said casually, "Since there is a snake shed here, the snake itself wouldn't be nearby, right?" When everyone heard this, their faces immediately turned pale. The air was extremely quiet, and they could vaguely hear rustling sounds. That disciple felt a little strange. "Why aren't you guys talking? Is there something wrong with what I said?" Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something. He couldn't help but swallow his saliva, and his voice trembled. "I'm only joking. How could it be such a coincidence? Ha ha ha." He laughed out loud to ease the awkwardness, but he didn't notice that his companion's eyes were getting more and more frightened. He also became panicked. "Why are you looking at me like that? Don't scare me." Hiss hiss. The rustling sound became more and more obvious, like a reptile passing through the grass. At the same time, there was a continuous hissing sound. He felt a chill coming from his back. He suddenly turned his head and bumped into the pair of cold and bloodthirsty beast eyes. It suddenly opened its mouth wide, and a fishy wind blew against his face. The snake stood up and almost covered the sky. Its body was dark and shiny, and its scales flickered with an ice-cold light. Its body was meandering in the grass, and its tail couldn't be seen at all. It was as if it could coil up the entire demon beast forest. "It's all your fault, you jinx. Good things don't come true, but bad things come true." Everyone simply lost their temper. No wonder the red-spotted poison-eye scorpion did not continue to chase after them. It turned out that they had already run into the territory of the forest's black boa. It was at least half a step into the Grandmaster realm. Even the third elder felt extremely numb. If a Grandmaster-level demon beast appeared later on, he would not be surprised. A hint of surprise flashed across Lin Bai's eyes. It seemed that the person behind this was quite willing to use means to deal with him. He just did not know who was targeting him. The Xiao family, who was far away from the capital city, did not know about the third elder's bumpy journey. Xiao Feng was a little puzzled. Before they left, the third elder had sent him a message. Based to their journey, they should have arrived a long time ago. It had already been a few days, but there was still no sign of them. The fourth elder guessed from the side. Could there be an accident on the way? Xiao Feng shook his head. Based on the strength of the third elder, he should be able to handle it. Moreover, although the demon beast forest is dangerous, those powerful demon beasts live in seclusion. As long as they don't take the initiative to provoke them, there's no problem at all. Just as they were talking, a servant rushed in. Reporting to the master, the third elder and the others have entered the city. Xiao Feng could not help but be a little excited. After all, the murderer who killed Xiao Yuqin was among them. They would be able to capture him immediately and bring him to justice so that he could comfort his son's soul in heaven. He spoke with a bleak tone. Act according to the plan. Once we find the traces of that thief, we'll take him down without hesitation. The other elders nodded in agreement. When they went out to welcome them, they were shocked by the scene in front of them. They could not help but ask, "Who are you guys?" The group in front of them looked like refugees who had entered the city. Their clothes were tattered and full of burn marks and holes. Those people also had disheveled hair and dirty faces. There were also bumps of varying sizes on their faces. It was really difficult to distinguish their appearances clearly. "It's me." Upon hearing the familiar voice, the fourth and fifth elders looked at each other and said in disbelief, "Third elder, how did you end up like this?" With this image, not to mention the third elder of the Xiao clan, even a random person on the street would have a better image. Even the disciples at the back were far too different from their dignified appearance before they left. People would think that they were beggars. Hearing this, the third elder felt both angry and embarrassed. His face flushed red like a cooked shrimp. As the third elder of the Xiao family, a halfway grandmaster, he actually ended up like this. It was a long story. It turned out that when the third elder and the others were being chased by the red-spotted venomous-eye scorpion, they were in a panic and didn't pay attention to their direction. They ran to the territory of the forest black boa, but they still couldn't escape the fate of being hunted down. When they finally got rid of the forest black boa, there was another flying centipede. It could be said that they had gone through a lot of hardships along the way, and they finally walked out of the demonic beast forest. After listening to the third elder's soul-stirring story, the other elders were even more surprised. It must be known that they had never had so much trouble when they passed through the demon beast forest in the past. "You guys are so..." For a moment, they actually did not know what to say. It felt as if they were possessed by the god of misfortune. Looking at the teams behind them, although they were also in a somewhat miserable state, they were really much better than the third elder and the others. They were clearly weaker, but the unlucky ones were the third elder and the others. How could it not be infuriating? Of course, there was someone who did this. These are the people in the mystic realm? They're all here, right? The third elder nodded. He did not forget the task that Xiao Feng had given him. They're all here. However, I did not find the person that the master described after observing them along the way. The fourth elder sneered and said, "It seems that he's still hiding very deeply. However, we'll be able to find him soon when we reach our territory." A few people whispered to each other. After that, fourth elder, fifth elder, and the others put on a warm smile. "I believe that all of you must be tired from the journey. You must have worked hard on the journey. Hand over your weapons first. I will bring you to meet the master of the Xiao family right now." Upon hearing that they had put down their weapons, there was some commotion in the crowd. "Why do you want us to hand over our weapons? You must know that these are all personal belongings. How can we hand them over so easily?" The fourth elder put on a fake smile. "This is also for the sake of the family head's safety. All the guests who have come to visit our Xiao family have done the same. We will return them to you after we have finished meeting the family head. When they thought about the status of the Xiao family, it was inevitable that they would do such a thing for the sake of their family head's safety. It was not appropriate for the crowd to say anything else. All of them obediently handed over their weapons. Lin Bai's eyes flashed. He recalled what Bai He had said earlier. They arrived in the capital, and this was still the Xiao family, so it was better to act carefully. Fortunately, the Dean of Education had given him a sword on the way, so he handed it over. The group was led all the way to the living room. It had to be said that the Xiao family really had a strong foundation. Even the servant who led the way was in the Hotian state. There were strange flowers and strange plants on the road. It was a feast for the eyes. There was even a small-scale spirit gathering array that was surrounded by a faint spiritual aura. It made the surrounding ancient buildings look even more extraordinary. Even the disciples from good families had never seen such a grand decoration. Even the 4 great academies did not have such a grand decoration like the Xiao family. Lin Bai should be the most calm and composed one among them. This is our family head. Lin Bai looked over and saw a middle-aged man sitting in the leader's seat. He had a mighty figure, and his tiger eyes were bright and full of vigor. The pressure emitted from his body was like a huge mountain. He was probably at the Grandmaster state. Everyone lowered their heads in the face of such a person. That was the pressure of a person in authority. They could not even raise their heads to look at him directly. Even the leading teacher was afraid of offending Xiao Feng and avoided his gaze. Xiao Feng also noticed that gaze. When he was about to look over, he did not see anyone. At that moment, Lin Bai had already lowered his head. He was no different from the others. When he thought that there might be a murderer who killed Xiao Yuqian, Xiao Feng's gaze became increasingly cold and ruthless. He was not in the mood to say anything. He hurriedly gave a few perfunctory words and asked the servants to take them away to rest. When the crowd dispersed, 4th Elder and the others also arrived. Did you find anything? Did you find the weapon that killed Chinner? The elder shook his head. We collected all their weapons, but we didn't find the wooden sword that the family head mentioned. Xiao Feng frowned. How is that possible? Could it be that the person behind the scenes sensed our intentions and didn't hand over the sword? But if he knew that we were looking for him, he should have thought of a way to escape. Why would he follow the main group to the capital city? He even came to our family. Wouldn't he be walking into a trap? The elders looked at each other and were extremely confused. Exactly. That's why we're here to ask the family head. Xiao Feng frowned and thought for a moment. Are you sure that all the people who were in the mystic realm that day are in this group? The 3rd elder saw Xiao Feng's unpleasant expression and was worried that he suspected that he was not doing a good job. He quickly said, Family head, I guarantee with my life that everyone is here. No one has left. Everyone believed in the 3rd elder's ability. It was a little too strange. It seems that the murderer is hiding quite well. However, if he is a fox, he will reveal his tail sooner or later. Let's just wait and see. Sooner or later, I will expose his true colors. But what about the others? Let them be. After all, they are not lacking in food. The most important thing now is to find the murderer who killed Chen Er. On the other side, Lin Bai had no idea that he had escaped a disaster. After the disciples of the academy were taken away to rest, Lin Bai greeted the dean and prepared to leave. The dean asked doubtfully, Aren't you going to rest? Don't tell me you know someone in the capital? According to his understanding, Lin Bai's family background was ordinary. Logically speaking, it was impossible for him to know anyone in the capital. Unexpectedly, Lin Bai said, I don't know anyone. The Dean of Education was a little speechless. Then why are you running around alone? If you really want to go, just wait for me to go with you so that I can take care of you. Lin Bai did not know whether to laugh or cry. I'm not a 3-year-old child. Are you afraid that I'll get lost? He waved his hand, indicating that the Dean of Education did not need to worry. He turned around and left. He was the first to step out of the Xiao family's door. Why is he out already? We're here to exchange and study in the capital city. Naturally, we have to take a good look at the local area here. Oh, that's right. We'll tidy up later. Let's go to the capital city for a stroll too. The capital city is vast and resourceful. I heard that there are many good things. Let's go and broaden our horizons. This trip won't be in vain. Lin Bai walked to the main door but was stopped by a servant. He raised his eyebrows. Why? Are you restricting our personal freedom? The servant knew that they came from a small place. A hint of disdain flashed across his eyes, but he did not show it on his face at all. Young master, you must be joking. It's just that you're new here, so it's inevitable that you're unfamiliar with the place. The family head is worried for your safety. What he meant was that Lin Bai was not allowed to leave the house. Lin Bai's gaze was calm as he said, Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I'm just casually walking around. I won't cause any trouble for the Xiao family. Moreover, your family head didn't seem to have instructed us to not allow us to leave the house, right? Or are you saying that the Xiao family invited us here to go to jail? Since he had already said that, it would be unreasonable if he tried to stop them again. The servants did not expect that Lin Bai would be so difficult to deal with. He even brought up the name of Xiao Feng. Please wait a moment. I'll go and report to the master. Soon, Xiao Feng found out about this matter. He said in a deep voice, Let him go. The fourth elder next to him frowned and said, I'm afraid it's not appropriate. What if the murderer takes this opportunity to escape? Xiao Feng smiled coldly. His eyes were filled with ruthlessness. I'm afraid the murderer won't escape. I'll take this opportunity to capture him and choose a skilled person to follow him. The third elder had been displeased with Lin Bai ever since they were on the road. It was a good opportunity for him to show off in front of Xiao Feng. Master, I think this kid is very suspicious. We've traveled for so long, and we've encountered many demonic beasts along the way. Everyone else is resting, but this kid still wants to go out. Maybe he's the murderer. Why don't we just catch him? Xiao Feng shook his head. There's no rush. Don't alert the enemy. If the murderer takes advantage of the chaos and runs away, then our losses will outweigh our gains. The most important thing now is to confirm the identity of the murderer. Soon, Lin Bai was let through. From the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a fleeting figure behind him, and the corners of his lips curled up slightly. Following behind Lin Bai were two core disciples of the Xiao family. Both of them were at Hotian 8th stage. When he saw that the fluctuation of the man's spiritual power in front of him was very ordinary, he immediately let his guard down. I don't know what's wrong with Master, but he sent the two of us to follow this group of poor students from the countryside. What's there to follow? It's simply a waste of time. Master must have his reasons for making such an arrangement. We'd better follow him well. If we lose him, neither of us will be able to bear the responsibility. Even though they were grumbling, they still followed him dutifully. Lin Bai was walking in front of them, playing with whatever he saw. He was no different from a country bumpkin entering the city. At first, the two disciples of the Xiao family were still staring at the figure in front of them, but later on, they began to slack off. They saw Lin Bai stop in front of a small vendor. They quickly stopped in their tracks and pretended to lower their heads to look at something. However, when they raised their heads, they were dumbfounded. Where is he? He was clearly here just now. Let's quickly split up to look for him. Otherwise, we won't be able to bear the blame of the family head. Watching them leave, Lin Bai walked out from the other side and headed in the opposite direction. The streets were filled with the sounds of hawking, and it was very lively. The surrounding shops were even more numerous, clean and bright. As expected of the capital, just one street was comparable to the prosperity of their main city district. Lin Bai walked aimlessly, thinking of finding a quiet and uninhabited place first. He had been traveling with the main group for the past few days. Lin Bai was worried that there would be too many people around and that the power transmission system would be exposed, so he did not summon Little Green and Little Red to carry out the power transmission. Suddenly, Lin Bai felt someone tugging at his sleeve. He looked down and saw a young man in slightly shabby clothes. He did not know how long this man had worn the clothes. Not only were they washed white, they were even patched. He wore a hat that covered most of his facial features. His face was a little dark, and one could vaguely see his delicate and pretty expression. His eyes, however, were shockingly bright, as if a star had fallen into them, causing his originally ordinary facial features to become more refined. His eyes turned even more lively. It looks like you're new here. Do you need a guide? He did not look old, but his words were exceptionally mature. Lin Bai was immediately interested. How did you know that I'm new here? The youth glanced at him and pretended to cough a few times, appearing very professional. Finally, he said, Intuition. This reason sounded very ridiculous. Lin Bai was not angry. Instead, he asked, Then do you know of any place that is suitable for cultivation and meditation? It would be best if no one disturbs me. Of course I know. Follow me. The young man led the way in front. The moment he turned around, he revealed a snow-white and delicate neck, which looked like a fine piece of suet jade. It formed a sharp contrast with his dark complexion. Lin Bai's eyes flashed slightly, but he did not say anything. He followed him to a magnificent building, Spirit Gathering Pavilion. The large characters on the board were dancing like dragons and dancing like phoenixes. They were filled with vigor, as if they were going to transform into a long dragon, breaking through the shackles and soaring into the sky. Lin Bai slowly read the words and could not help but praise the good handwriting. There were many people coming in and out of the door. It was obviously very lively, but it seemed to be quiet inside. There was no sound of conversation. He could not help but ask, What is this place for? This is a special place for cultivation. There are many cultivation rooms inside, and each room is equipped with spiritual energy arrays and enchantments. Cultivating inside will not double your result with half the effort, but it can also isolate you from sight and sound. No one will disturb you. How safe is it inside? The youth rolled his eyes. The Spirit Gathering Pavilion has existed for so many years. If they don't have some foundation, how would they dare to open it here? He looked around and lowered his voice. I heard that there's a great grandmaster behind it. The formation here has a special spiritual artifact that operates. It would be hard for even a grandmaster to pry into it. Lin Bai's eyes lit up. As expected of the capital, it was impossible for a small town like theirs to open up a place for cultivation. After all, just setting up a spirit chi array required a lot of resources, not to mention setting up a barrier. Such a huge amount of resources was not something an ordinary person could set up. Their small town did not have people with such capabilities. Then can everyone go in? The youth shook his head. The Spirit Gathering Pavilion is not a charity hall. The rooms here are divided into 4 levels: A, B, C, and D. A is the best, and each level is subdivided into 1, 2, and 3. If you want a good room, you must spend a large number of crystals, and when the time is up, you must go out. Otherwise, you will have to renew the fee. Lin Bai nodded. That's true. Otherwise, even a mountain of gold and silver wouldn't be able to withstand such a consumption. The young man saw that Lin Bai was from another city, so he explained in great detail. You're making my mouth dry. It looks like you've really never been to the capital before. Then I'll have to charge you more. Otherwise, it'll be too much of a loss. The young man saw his expression and knew that Lin Bai was extremely satisfied. How is it? The place I recommended isn't bad, right? After saying that, he rubbed his index finger and revealed a money grubber expression. The meaning behind it was self-evident. Lin Bai threw a small bag of crystals to him. The youth stuffed it into his clothes without even looking at it. He was overjoyed and said, Thank you, boss. I know all about the matters in the capital. Next time, come to me and I'll give you a friendly discount. You're welcome. Lin Bai's gaze was meaningful. From the clothes, it could be seen that the youth's family was in a difficult situation. His every move was like he was greedy for money. However, after receiving the crystals, how could he put them into his pocket without even counting them? Lin Bai didn't expose him. The young man didn't know that he had exposed himself, and he thought that he had covered it up well. By the way, you wouldn't be able to go in to cultivate. How do you know so much? Lin Bai asked casually. This? The young man paused for a moment. He probably didn't expect Lin Bai to ask this, and then he quickly reacted. Spirit Gathering Pavilion is so famous that almost everyone knows about it. Anyone can know about it, but only you guys who have just arrived in the capital don't know about it. He didn't want to say anything more. Just as he was about to part ways with Lin Bai, boom! A figure was blasted out from inside. The man looked extremely miserable. He said indignantly, I was clearly the first one to arrive. What right do you have to rob a room? A few servants blocked the door. They looked fierce. With your cultivation level, you're using room A? Even if you cultivate, it'll be a waste of time. I think room D is the most suitable for you." After saying that, everyone burst into laughter. It turned out that there was only one room left. Clearly, the man was the first to arrive, but it was snatched by someone else. The young man whispered beside him, "There is no lack of influential families and people with rich backgrounds in the capital. They have plenty of money, so room A has always been in high demand. Although room A was expensive, it had not reached the sky-high price yet. Many people could afford it, so they naturally chose the best room." The man's face turned green and white, and he could not hold back his anger. "You guys are really going too far." The brocade-robed young master stood out from behind him. "Qin Jinan, you trash. Do you deserve to fight with me? You've cultivated for so long, and you're still at Hotian 8th stage. If I were you, I would hide at home and not come out, so as to not embarrass myself." It was difficult for any person to endure such humiliation, let alone a dignified 7 feet tall man. Chun Jin, An's expression immediately changed, and he was about to charge forward. "He Linsheng, I'll fight it out with you." He formed a seal with his hand, and his spirit energy transformed into a falcon as he charged forward. He Linsheng sneered and summoned a fierce tiger, which instantly bit off the falcon's throat, easily neutralizing his attack. "As expected, you're a piece of trash. With this method of yours, I can deal with you with 10% of my strength." The youth whispered into Lin Bai's ear again. The He family and the Qin family both have good family backgrounds. However, He Linsheng's cultivation level is very high, and he is highly regarded in the family. Chun Jian N's lineage is the second branch, and he is not the person in charge. However, the He family and the Chun family have a long-standing feud. Although on the surface, they are still quite amiable, but when they meet, there will inevitably be conflicts. Of course, Qin Jinan, the easy target, will be picked on. Seeing that the young man knew everything about the capital and seemed to know quite a bit, Lin Bai could not help but be curious about his real identity. If he was really an ordinary person from a difficult family, how would he know so much? The young man did not realize that he had already exposed himself and was watching the show with great interest. Chen Jin, and did not even touch the corner of He Linsheng's clothes before he was lifted up by the collar like a little chicken. "So what if you came first? Strength is the most important thing. People like you are destined to be trampled under my feet." The surrounding people pointed at him, but no one dared to step forward. After all, this matter had nothing to do with them. Moreover, this was a matter between the He and Qin families, so there was no need to get involved. However, the youth was filled with righteous indignation. He looked like he was filled with a sense of justice. "These words are too harsh. You can't bully people like this." Lin Bai gave him a sidelong glance. He couldn't tell that this youth was the kind of person who would pull out a knife to help someone in the face of injustice. He could only see his eyes darting around, looking extremely crafty. No one knew what he was planning. "Stop. You guys are going too far." He Linsheng and the others looked over. It was the youth who had spoken. Seeing that they were looking over, the youth hurriedly shrank back to Lin Bai's side. Those who didn't know better would think that he was being instructed by him. Subconsciously, they thought that the two of them were together. When they saw that Lin Bai and the others were dressed in ordinary clothes and the spiritual energy fluctuations coming from their bodies weren't big, they immediately revealed a contemptuous smile. Where did these two beggars come from? How dare they meddle in this young master's business? If you're sensible, then get lost quickly. Just based on the fact that you still want to come to the Spirit Gathering Pavilion to cultivate, aren't you afraid of dirtying the ground? With He Linsheng's arrogant and domineering attitude, if he didn't have a good family background, many people would probably hold a grudge against him. Without waiting for Lin Bai to speak, the youth didn't want to be outdone and said, "There are some people who dress pretty but have a black heart. Let's hurry up and leave. When we breathe in this air with him, we can feel that the air has been polluted. It's difficult for me to breathe." These words were extremely vicious. He Linsheng's face almost turned crooked from anger. He revealed a vicious expression. "You little beggar. I didn't expect you to be so sharp-tongued. I'm going to pull out your teeth one by one." Seeing that his expression did not look like he was joking, he was actually going to pull out all of the people's teeth with just one sentence. The young man shrunk his neck and made a face. I'm so scared. Although he said so, there was no fear on his face. Men, arrest these two people for me. This time, it was really a case of collateral damage. Obviously, he thought that Lin Bai and the youth were together. I'm just a passerby. He lynching looked at Lin Bai, and then at the youth standing next to him. You think I'm a fool? Do you think I'll believe you? Aren't you a fool? You're the kind of person with a vicious heart. Clearly, he lynching was really angry. You're courting death. The moment he finished speaking, a stream of spirit energy rushed towards the youth's fatal point. If he was really hit, he would probably be either dead or crippled. Everyone's hearts were in their throats. The youth did not dodge and just stood where he was. It was as if he was scared silly. At the critical moment, a golden light flashed and enveloped the young man's body. The spiritual power seemed to have met with some kind of obstruction and immediately dissipated in the air. Lin Bai said indifferently, your temper is a little too big. He's just a child who doesn't know anything, yet you want to take his life. Aren't you a little too ruthless? He lynching did not expect that Lin Bai, who did not seem to have a high cultivation level, could actually block his attack. He did not take it to heart. If you want to blame someone, blame him for not having eyes. He waved his hands, and a long sword that was flashing with a sharp light appeared in the air. The body of the sword was as thin as paper, and it could cut iron as easily as mud. At a glance, one could tell that it was not an ordinary sword. Not to mention that the body of the sword was engraved with complicated patterns. It looked particularly mysterious. Since you want to be in the limelight, I'll grant you your wish. Pointing the long sword with a sharp and threatening chill, the others retreated more than 10 meters, afraid that they would be implicated. It seemed that he lynching was going serious. At this moment, a melodious voice was heard. Its gender was indistinguishable. It was sometimes far and sometimes near. Who dares to cause trouble in the spirit-gathering pavilion? A tremendous spiritual pressure came over, pressing down on everyone until they could hardly breathe. It was as if there was an insurmountable mountain in front of them, or a mysterious existence hidden in the dark. Lin Bai felt the feeling of being spied on. It was as if there was an eye watching everything in front of him, and nothing could be hidden. Even if that feeling disappeared in a flash, it still left an indelible impression on everyone. This person was very powerful. Everyone was suffocated by the pressure except Lin Bai and the youth, who seemed to have no spiritual power at all, were left. It is indeed true that the spirit-gathering pavilion has a master guarding it. It is just that I wonder what the cultivation level of that master is. It is said that he is extremely mysterious and no one has ever seen him before. I also don't know if he is a man or a woman. The youth said in a low voice by the side. When he met Lin Bai's gaze, he seemed to have realized something. He hurriedly frowned and revealed an expression of unbearable pain. He acted quite well, but Lin Bai did not comment on it. On the other hand, He Lingxing's sinister gaze swept past Lin Bai and the others. It was clear that he was also afraid of the person behind the spirit-gathering pavilion. Forget it. I'll let you off this time. Don't let me see you again, or else. After He Lingxing said those harsh words, he led everyone away. Chun Jin and obviously did not have the mood to cultivate anymore. He struggled to get up from the ground and cupped his hands to thank Lin Bai. Thank you, little brother. If you don't mind, this is my waste token. There's still some time on it. If you want to cultivate, just go ahead. I don't think that He Lingxing will come again for a short period of time. After saying that, he paused and revealed a bitter smile. He muttered to himself, anyway, I've been cultivating for so long. It doesn't seem to be of much use. Chun Jin and gradually walked further and further away, his back revealing a desolate aura. By the time Lin Bai came back to his senses, the youth from earlier had already disappeared. He was the culprit who had almost caused a great battle, but now, he had slipped away faster than anyone else. When did he leave? He actually did not notice. Lin Bai sighed in his heart. There were indeed crouching tigers and hidden dragons in the capital. He just did not know the true identity of this young man. Lin Bai looked at the waste token given to him by Chen Jin. It was made of top-quality white spirit jade. It felt warm at the touch and looked extremely transparent. Under the sunlight, it was like glass, emitting a lustrous glow A1 was engraved on it. The Spirit Gathering Pavilion used the waste token as proof. After Lin Bai showed it, he was led to the room by a servant. The servant's footsteps were steady. He seemed to be at Hotion 5th level, almost as good as the ordinary disciples of the 4 great academies. However, in the Spirit Gathering Pavilion, he was just a servant who led the way. It made people sigh with admiration at how generous this place was. When they arrived at room A1, Lin Bai, under the guidance of the servant, inserted the jade plate into the groove outside. As the light swirled, a light screen unfolded in front of his eyes. At the same time, he walked in to take a look. There was a completely different world inside. The furnishings were extremely simple. There was only a futon in the middle. Other than that, there was nothing else. However, inside, he could not hear any movement from outside. It was as if he was isolated from the world in a world of his own. Lin Bai used his spirit sense to probe inside. It was as if he had crashed into a region of chaos. Gray fog covered his surroundings. He did not know what was happening in the next room at all. Moreover, after staying in the fog for a long time, he actually felt like he was about to lose himself. "Who dares to spy on me?" A loud shout was heard. It was different from the voice that had warned He Linsheng and the others outside. It was an extremely old voice that carried a supreme pressure. This time, even Lin Bai felt the pressure. He hurriedly withdrew his spiritual sense. Even so, it was as if countless densely packed needles had been inserted into his head, almost giving him a splitting headache. His face was deathly pale, and it took him a long time to recover. The Spirit Gathering Pavilion's array formation and enchantment are indeed powerful. What Lin Bai didn't know was that there were many people who had done the same thing as him. After all, many people were cultivating here. In order to get information, people would go to any lengths, wanting to exploit the loopholes in the array formation and enchantment. Using this to pry into other people's cultivation methods or secret cultivation manuals, they all came back empty-handed like him. There were even some whose cultivation level dropped drastically. When they asked the Spirit Gathering Pavilion for an explanation, they were only told that they deserved what they got. In the beginning, there was a faction like this. Their disciples had evil intentions and tried to pry into other people's secrets. In the end, not only did their cultivation level drop drastically, but they also became delirious. In a fit of anger, they attacked the Spirit Gathering Pavilion. In the end, the faction behind them was also destroyed on the same day. The means of the person behind the scenes was extremely clean and neat. Although there was no evidence pointing to the Spirit Gathering Pavilion as the culprit, everyone knew what happened in their hearts. From then on, no one dared to provoke the Spirit Gathering Pavilion, nor would they break the taboo. Lin Bai still did not know that he had wandered around the gates of hell again. Seeing that this place was so secretive, he finally relaxed and began to cultivate and meditate. The effect was indeed obvious, and it was even much better than the one on the Red Luan Peak. Seeing that there was only a bit of time left, he hurriedly summoned Little Green, Little Red, and Little Black. The 3 little ones had been suffocating for the past few days. They suddenly came out like wild horses that had gone off the reins. Little Black and Little Green were fine, but the space here was too small for Little Red to fly. It couldn't help but fold its wings and stand there very sullenly. Its eyes revealed an expression of complaint. "Make do for now. After all, this is a special situation." Lin Bai made up his mind. If he were to cultivate, this would indeed be a good place. However, it would be too much for Little Green and the others. He would have to bring them to places like the forest and the wilderness next time. Ding! The host has passed on his cultivation to Little Black for 10 days. The 100 times return has been successfully triggered. The host has received 1,000 days of cultivation. This time, it was still Little Black. Lin Bai planned to make things with them. The 3 little ones would cultivate together. Little Black was relatively behind, so he needed to pass on his cultivation to it a few more times. At the same time, in a faraway place, clouds surrounded the peak of the mountain, and one could reach out to pick the stars and embrace the moon. One could see an ancient tree with intertwined roots. The length of its leaves seemed to be able to soak into the clouds, bathing in the essence of the sun and the moon. The radiance flowed, and it looked extraordinary. The crown was like a cover, and lush colors covered the top. Through the gaps between the leaves, one could vaguely see a figure meditating. Suddenly, he opened his eyes, and a green leaf slowly fell on his palm. Interesting. Which reckless person touched the restriction again? The corner of his mouth slowly outlined a smile. In an instant, the wind stopped, and the clouds stopped. There was only the whirring sound of the leaves, as if countless people were whispering. When he went to investigate, he discovered that the strand of spiritual sense had already disappeared without a trace. It was as if what had just happened was just an illusion. One had to know that this was something that had never happened before. That little fellow touched so much that even I could sense it, but I actually couldn't find his spiritual sense. It seems that his reaction speed is quite fast. It's just a pity. Then, he closed his eyes again. The wind blew, the clouds moved, and the ancient tree swayed. Just as Lin Bai was cultivating in the spirit-gathering pavilion, the Shao family disciples who could not find him for a long time had no choice but to go back and report to him. Shao Feng was furious when he heard that. What? You actually lost him? The two disciples only realized how serious the matter was when they saw Shao Feng's bleak expression, as if he was about to eat someone up. They originally thought that they had just lost a student from the countryside. Now that they looked at the family head, it seemed that there was something else going on. A great pressure came from above their heads. The sword technique struck down from the sky with a thunderous momentum. The two disciples suddenly spat out large mouthfuls of blood. Like frightened quails, they trembled and did not dare to raise their heads. Please spare our lives, family head. We have been following closely. Who would have thought that the person would disappear in the blink of an eye? He must have discovered our tracking and used some kind of method. The third elder's expression was also not very good. This Lin Bai is definitely the murderer. Otherwise, how would he have discovered our tracking and thought of ways to get rid of these two disciples? He must be feeling guilty and trying to escape. Shao Feng could not contain his anger. He was about to catch Xiao Yuchen's murderer, but because of these two disciples, he let him go. How could he not be angry? He immediately regretted not listening to the third elder at the beginning. Now that he had let the tiger go back to the mountain, it would be very difficult to find Lin Bai again. Shao Feng gritted his teeth and said with a slightly murderous tone, "You deserve to die." The two disciples kowtowed desperately and begged for mercy. "Master, please spare my life. Master, please spare my life." It was too late. At that time, Shao Feng's spiritual power turned into a sword and was about to hit their skulls, but he was stopped by the fourth elder next to him. "Family head, it's useless to punish them now. Since we already know who the murderer is, I heard that the person who came with him, the dean of his school, is also here. It's better to follow the clues and capture his family. It'll be useful after all." What he said made sense. As expected, Shao Feng's expression became much better. He smiled sinisterly and revealed a hint of malevolence. Very good. Since he ran away, let his family atone for their sins. At this moment, a servant came to report that Lin Bai had returned. Moreover, he was right outside the door. Shao Feng could not believe it. He hurriedly joined the few elders and happened to see Lin Bai walking into the main door. He immediately revealed a flattered expression. "How could I be able to make everyone welcome me like this?" The third elder blurted out, "Didn't you run away?" Lin Bai immediately revealed a confused expression. "Run? Where am I going to run to? Moreover, am I not here to study? I'm just going out for a walk to get some fresh air. How could I run away?" After saying that, he seemed to be joking. Could it be that the Shao family has treated us as prisoners? The third elder knew that he had misspoken and quickly said, "Of course not. We're just worried about your safety. However, where did you go previously? Seeing that you haven't returned for so long, we were worried that something might have happened to you, but we couldn't find you no matter how hard we tried." Lin Bai waved the plate in his hand. Only then did everyone realize that it was actually the Spirit Gathering Pavilion's A plate. "You actually went to the Spirit Gathering Pavilion?" Lin Bai nodded. "I heard that the Spirit Gathering Pavilion's cultivation room is pretty good. I just spent too much time cultivating. Sorry for troubling everyone to worry about me. If there's nothing else, I'm going back to my room first." Under the watchful eyes of Shao Feng, the elders, and the others, Lin Bai walked in calmly. The other elders looked at each other. Elder, look at this. They thought that Lin Bai had run away, so there was no doubt that he was the murderer. However, now that he had come back, would he be so stupid if he was really the murderer? Would he walk right into the trap? The murderer should be someone else. If he was really guilty, he wouldn't have come back. The third elder, on the other hand, had a different opinion. Perhaps he released a smoke bomb to confuse us. Anyway, I think this person is very suspicious. There's actually nothing wrong with him. Why would he ditch the people we sent out? Perhaps it's just an accident. Moreover, what's the benefit of doing this? Rather than releasing a smoke bomb, it's better to directly escape. Other than Lin Bai, there were also quite a number of people who went out earlier. The disciples that were sent out to follow them all came back to report, but they did not find anything unusual. Xiaofeng could not make up his mind for a while. Let's stick to the previous plan. We should not alert the enemy for the time being. Anyway, all the people are here. None of them can escape. Lin Bai did not know that he had escaped unscathed. When he returned to the courtyard, the director said, "The Xiao family seems to have something to talk to you about. They seem to be quite anxious. We bumped into each other when we entered the house just now. Nothing happened. You don't know. When they saw that you had not returned for a long time, they looked a little pale. They sent someone to ask me several times. It's really strange that there's nothing going on now." The dean's ridicule made Lin Bai think, "Oh right, where did you go before?" "I went to the spirit gathering pavilion to cultivate." The dean had come to the capital before and knew about the spirit gathering pavilion. When he heard this, he couldn't help but reveal a look of amazement. "Kid, you're good. I was just about to tell you, but I didn't expect you to find it yourself. You even have an A-class plate." Just as the two of them were talking, a commotion came from outside. Senior brother Bai is in big trouble. Qin Yin and a few others from the Sword Cultivation Academy have been detained. Bai He and the others also rushed over when they heard the news. What's going on? It turned out that Qin Yin and the others had an argument with someone and were ridiculed as being from the countryside. They were so angry that they argued for a while. They didn't expect that that person would actually start a fight, and the others were all detained. It was this disciple who saw that the situation wasn't looking good and slipped back early in the morning to inform the others. "Come, let's hurry and take a look." Even though they weren't from the same academy, they still had to take care of each other when they were out. Most people chose to go, and Lin Bai was naturally among them. At this moment, on the other side, the disciples of the Sword Cultivation Academy, as well as a few disciples of other academies, were all tied up on the spot with a rope. The rope suffused with a faint golden light and did not look ordinary. No matter how much they struggled, it was futile. The person beside them said mockingly, "This is an immortal binding rope. With your low cultivation levels, you should save your strength for collecting his corpse." They were still fine, but the person laying on the ground was getting hit with spiritual power one strike after another. It was a shocking sight. Even if you are powerful, you can't take human lives lightly, right? The leader seemed to have heard a joke. In this world, the strong are respected. If you want to blame someone, blame your bad luck. It was as if he was watching a show. He admired these people's shocked and angry expressions. The cruelty and ruthlessness in his eyes made it seem as if human lives were not worth mentioning in his eyes. "I was just offended by two country bumpkins, and you guys bumped into the muzzle of a gun. Why did I poke into the country bumpkin's nest today? How unlucky. If I didn't teach you guys a good lesson, you would really think that I had lost my temper." If Lin Bai were here, he would realize that this person was none other than he lynching from before. It turned out that not long after he had left the Spirit Gathering Pavilion, he had bumped into people from the Sword Cultivator Academy. He was already angry, so his attitude naturally became even more arrogant. Although Chen Yin from the Sword Cultivator Academy knew that he had to keep a low profile in the capital to avoid provoking people that he shouldn't provoke, He Lingqing's words were really too harsh. He couldn't help but reply a few words, but who would have thought that He Lingqing would lash out? How could they be a match for him? His other companions were shackled by the immortal binding rope, and he was in an extremely bad situation. Seeing that He Lingqing really didn't care about human lives, the others were a little anxious. They gritted their teeth and pleaded, "Young master, It's our fault for not recognizing Mount Tai. Please be magnanimous and let us off. He Lynching raised his eyebrows. Now you know to admit defeat. If this had happened earlier, you guys would not have met with such a disaster. I'm not a person who holds grudges. He showed a malicious smile. If you guys bark a few times, I can consider letting you country bumpkins off. The few of them hesitated for a moment. They looked at the unconscious Chun Yin. For the sake of his safety, they finally lowered their heads and said with a humiliated expression, "Woof, woof. You all barked too softly. I didn't hear you." They made up their minds and went all out. They raised their voices and then lowered their heads deeply, not daring to look at the gazes of others. At this moment, they wished they could find a hole in the ground and hide. The only thing they were thankful for was that there were no people they were familiar with here. Otherwise, they would not have the face to face them. Looking at their humiliated expressions, He Lynching revealed a carefree smile. The malice in his eyes increased instead of decreasing. I'm not satisfied with your barking. How about this? You can crawl under my crotch and like a doggy crawling through a hole. Everyone can see it. Don't go too far. We agreed to let us go by barking like dogs. How can you go back on your words? He Lynching revealed a puzzled expression. Did I say that? I seem to have just said that I would consider it. Unfortunately, I'm not satisfied with your performance. You can't even learn how to bark like dogs, and you still want to be human. The crowd roared with laughter, making their faces red and ears red. More than that, they were filled with unspeakable anger. He Lynching had no intention of letting them go. He was just making fun of them. Chen Yin, who was lying on the ground, moved his fingers. He tried to open his eyes and spat on He Lynching's face. 2A, you want to be a doggy hole? You think you're worthy to let us crawl into it? He Lynching was caught off guard and was spat all over his face. He wiped the blood foam off his face in exasperation. The gloominess in his eyes seemed to want to swallow Chen Yin whole. Very well. Since you want to die so badly, then I'll grant you your wish. He was about to take a step forward, but the flying sword that was rushing towards him interrupted his move. He Lynching took a few steps back, and the sword stabbed straight into the wall. Its body was emitting a cold divine light. Who is it? He suddenly turned his head around. It was Bai He and the others. Because Lin Bai was walking at the back of the group, he didn't see them. However, Lin Bai saw He Lynching and couldn't help but sigh in his heart. Seeing Bai He and the others arrive, the people who were restrained by the immortal binding rope couldn't help but show happy expressions. They stood up and shouted, "Senior Brother Bai." He Lynching narrowed his eyes and sized up Bai He. So you're the eldest senior brother of these country bumpkins? The people beside Bai He said indignantly, "It is him. He's simply going too far. I was wondering why there was a missing person. It turns out that there's a fish that slipped through the net and went back to call for reinforcements," He Lynching said nonchalantly. Even though there were many people on Bai He's side, in his eyes, they were just a motley crew. Bai He had always been arrogant and prideful, but he also knew that there were many capable people in the capital. He should not act impulsively, so he suppressed his temper. Moreover, before they set off, his master had repeatedly warned them not to provoke trouble. However, when he saw Chen Yan's miserable state, he could not help but get angry. He held back his anger and said calmly, "I wonder how this junior brother offended you. No matter how angry you are, you should be appeased." Everyone hurriedly helped Chun Yin up from the ground. At the same time, a spirit light flashed in Bai He's hand. The golden ropes broke one after another. The disciples who were bound by the immortal binding rope also returned to the group. He Lynching looked at Bai H's neat movements. His eyes flashed slightly, but he allowed them to move. When Bai He was about to leave, he finally opened his mouth and said, "Wait, did I say that I let you go?" Bai He seemed to have sensed something as he suddenly moved to the side. A silver sword light brushed past him, and his black hair fluttered in the air. If it weren't for his fast reaction speed, perhaps it wouldn't have been his hair that would have fallen off. Instead, it would be half of his head. It could be seen that He Lynching was extremely ruthless. This fellow Taoist attacked someone from behind. This isn't the work of a gentleman, right? He Lynching sneered and said, "You offended me and then said some petty words. Yet you want to leave. Who do you think I am? These words were distorting the black and white. Just by looking at Chen Yan's miserable state, one could tell how much Lin Bai and the others had gone overboard. Even a clay figurine had some temper, not to mention that Bai he was originally a favored son of heaven. His eyes were like ice and snow descending, and even his voice became incomparably cold. What do you intend to do? Beat me, and I'll let you go. As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Bai pounced forward. Bai he was also unwilling to be outdone. The long sword in his hand slashed across the sky, drawing a brilliant divine rainbow and blocking his fierce attack. Seeing that Bai he was able to resolve the attack so easily, Lin Bai's eyes flashed. The sword incantation in his hand changed in a myriad of ways. There was only one sword, but it was as if there were tens of thousands of weapons. Amidst the sword light and sword shadow, his figure was like a ghost. It was simply impossible to guard against. The long sword hovered in the air like the sun and the moon slowly rising. It brought with it a great pressure. There was only an endless amount of golden light left in this area. It was so piercing that it was almost impossible for people to open their eyes. Bai he was deeply immersed in it, and the sun and moon were slowly approaching. Seeing that the space was becoming increasingly narrow, he suddenly slashed out, but it was like a mist dispersing. It was actually an illusion. However, Lin Bai came from behind with his sword. Fortunately, Bai he was alert and narrowly dodged it. But the timely sword chi also cut a hole in his body. Seeing this, everyone couldn't help but sweat for Bai he. The illusion created by Lin Bai looked extremely real. Moreover, it had a certain degree of offensive power. Bai he could at most shatter the illusion, but it couldn't cause any damage to Lin Bai himself. However, Lin Bai could directly harm him through the illusion. Lin Bai watched the two of them fight until they couldn't part. I didn't expect that although this Lin Bai is arrogant and despotic, he still has some power. When the dean heard this, he looked at him and asked curiously, "Do you know this Lin Bai?" Lin Bai nodded and said, "When I went out for a walk, I also had an argument with him." This? The dean couldn't help but smack his lips. Seeing Chen Yan and the others end up in a miserable state, he couldn't help but ask, "Didn't he do anything to you?" He also wanted to, but he was stopped by someone at that time. Then quickly hide in the team. This Lin Bai is already not on good terms with us to begin with. This person will seek revenge for the smallest grievance. Lin Bai did not mind. He was not afraid at all. However, when he saw the dean's worried expression, he symbolically moved closer. "Senior brother Bai will be fine, right? What nonsense are you spouting? Senior brother Bai is the most powerful. He will definitely win. How can you raise the morale of others and destroy your own prestige?" Although he said that, everyone was still uncertain. They could see that Lin Bai was not using his full strength at the moment. He was like a cat catching a mouse, as if he was playing some kind of game. Bai he made use of his underestimation of the enemy and faked a move, using the sword breaks the firmament. He held the long sword in his hand, as if he was a giant that could split the heaven and earth. He pointed with the tip of the sword, and a deep crack appeared in the sky. It seemed to have been opened up by a huge hole, and the wind blew through it. The shadow of the huge sword was faintly discernible in the crack, and what was revealed in front of them was only the tip of the iceberg. The crack grew larger and larger, but they still could not see the whole picture. Everyone felt that if it appeared in full, even the sky would not be able to withstand it. It was as if the ancient sword of a different world had been summoned, and even the heaven and earth stood on the sword. Everyone was shaken by the sword chi and retreated dozens of miles, not to mention Lin Bai, who was in the center. His gaze changed slightly, and countless golden lights streaked across the sky like the rising sun. A huge sun rose from behind him, and the world was enveloped in a pale golden light, as if a god had been born from it. Seeing that the huge sword was getting closer and closer to the sun, Lin Bai actually wanted to stop it head-on. A huge amount of spirit energy suddenly burst out from his palm. Boom! The giant sword and the golden sun collided. It was as if even the sky could not withstand the huge impact and began to shake. The invisible waves shook rapidly, and the surrounding ground was instantly swept clean. Countless flowers, plants, and trees were instantly turned into ashes. Not even dregs were left. Everything was clean as if there was nothing left. The sun was split into two, and a sword was stuck in the middle. Such a scene did not give the crowd much of an impact. It was as if this sword was the only thing left in the world, and everything in front of it was like floating clouds. Everything in the world was broken by a sword. Bai's position did not change, but Lin took half a step back. His expression was somewhat unsightly, and he finally put away the slight contempt from before. Instead, it was replaced by a dark and fierce look. I couldn't tell that you still have some ability. The huge sword in front of him was only half a step away from him. If Bai had not stopped and thought that Lin should have an extraordinary status and did not want to offend the family behind him, the distance would not have been this far. Bai said concisely, "Thanks for letting me win. Now can we go?" After all, Lin had previously said that as long as he beat him, he would let everyone go. Lin looked at his back as he turned around. His face was like a palette, changing colors. He could not believe that he had actually lost to a country bumpkin from the countryside. "You're courting death." Taking advantage of the fact that Bai was caught off guard, Lin waved his hand, causing a thick layer of dust to rise up from the ground, blurring everyone's vision. At the same time, a dark light flashed through his sleeves, speeding towards Bai. "Senior brother Bai, be careful." By the time Bai noticed it, it was already too late. The dark green light pierced straight into his left shoulder. It was actually an incomparably dart, and it broke through the defensive barrier outside. It was obvious that it was a special hidden weapon made from extremely precious materials. There were small holes in the mouth of the dart that looked like gears that stuck into the flesh. Fresh blood flowed out along the grooves. Although the wound was small, it was extremely difficult to remove. Moreover, if it was not removed in time, there was even the risk of losing blood and dying. Bai immediately fell to the ground. Everyone hurriedly helped him up. Their eyes were blazing with flames. "You despicable person, you've gone too far. You can't beat our senior brother Bai, so you sneak attacked him." Lin actually said shamelessly, "I didn't say that you can't use a hidden weapon, right? It's your own stupidity." Seeing Bai's increasingly unsightly expression, and even his lips turning black, everyone was shocked to realize that there was still poison on the meteor dart. It was clear that Lin's methods were vicious. "Quickly give us the antidote." Lin took out a small porcelain bottle from his pocket. "The antidote is here. If you have the ability, come and get it. Don't go too far. Even if we can't beat you, do you think we can't beat you with so many people together?" Lin and the others were very powerful, but there were only a few people on this side. Many ants could kill an elephant. Although Bai, who had the highest combat power, had temporarily lost his mobility, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with them. Lin didn't take their threats seriously. Instead, he showed a provocative smile. "Are you trying to scare me? More people? Do you think you can win with more people?" He paused and said meaningfully, "Anyway, I have plenty of time to waste with you. As for whether your senior brother Bai can afford it, I don't know." They did not know what kind of poison it was, but the effect of the poison took effect very quickly. At first, Bai only had a bruise on his lips, but now, his face was getting uglier and uglier. He sat cross-legged, circulating all the spiritual power in his body. He wanted to force the poison out, but he suddenly spat out a large mouthful of black blood. "Senior brother Bai, are you all right?" Everyone was shocked and anxious. When Lin saw this, a carefree smile flashed across his face. "This is not an ordinary poison. I used the 5 poisons made from the flying centipede, scorpion, toad, snake, and gecko of the Hotion 8th stage. Without the special detoxification pill, even the immortal would not be able to save you. Moreover, if you use your spiritual power to force the poison out, it will only cause it to take effect faster." He didn't say anything before, but now he opened his mouth. It was obvious that he was toying with everyone, and he definitely wouldn't hand over the antidote. His goal was to see everyone cry and beg for mercy, and then take the opportunity to torture them. One of the disciples took advantage of Lin's lack of attention and wanted to snatch the antidote. However, before he could get close, a stream of spirit energy shot over, and Lin said disdainfully, How dare you bring out such pitiful power and make a fool of yourself? Among all of you, this senior brother Bai might still have some ability. As for the rest of you, you are all trash. I advise you to save your strength and wait to collect senior brother Bai's corpse. What exactly do we have to do for you to be willing to give us the antidote? I said, as long as you kneel down and kowtow, and then crawl under my crotch, perhaps I will consider letting you live after I'm in a good mood. Lin Bai had said this before, but it was a pity that he didn't keep his word. Those who had been fooled before weren't willing to trust him now. However, Bai's face was black and blue. If he hadn't used his spiritual power to protect his heart, he probably wouldn't have been able to do it now. Or I can give you another chance. If any of you can beat me, I'll give you the antidote. Bai was considered the most powerful sword cultivator among the students. Besides him, who else could beat him? Moreover, even if they did, who knew if Lin Bai would go back on his words and use some ruthless methods? Everyone looked at each other. There was really no other way. They, who had lost their minds due to anger, were ready to use force to deal with him. You are really going too far. At most, we will fight with you. If senior brother Bai is dead, you can die too. Lin Bai sneered, you guys can try all you want. Both sides were suddenly at daggers drawn, and the smell of gunpowder became even stronger. Hold on, Bai's weak voice sounded. He could see that Lin Bai had nothing to fear. If they really fought head-on, they would definitely be the ones to suffer in the end. Without some means and background, Lin Bai would not be so arrogant. Let's go. The others were not willing. Senior brother Bai, but we haven't gotten the antidote yet. Senior brother Bai. Bai could not help but reveal a bitter smile. He knew that Lin Bai would not easily hand over the antidote. Rather than both sides suffering heavy losses and causing the family behind him to attack, it would be better to return to the Shao family first and see if there was any solution. Everyone left unwillingly. This time, Lin Bai did not stop them. Seeing the smug smile on his face, the disciples of the academy only felt their teeth itch. They wished that they could rush up and punch him. At this moment, a lazy voice sounded. You're right. We haven't obtained the antidote yet. How can we leave so easily? As Lin Bai stood at the end of the line and did not say much, everyone almost ignored his existence. Seeing Lin Bai suddenly open his mouth, the crowd suddenly recalled a certain rumor from before. Do you all remember a rumor that Bai once challenged Lin Bai in the Mystic Essence Mystic Realm, but he failed? After hearing what he said, some of the disciples had heard about it. However, this matter was suppressed by the people of the 4 great academies and was not allowed to be mentioned again, so no one discussed it anymore. In addition, Lin Bai and Bai did not have any interactions along the way, and they were peaceful and did not seem to have any grudges. Everyone gradually put it to the back of their minds. It was only now that Lin Bai stood out that they remembered. The eyes of a few disciples from the Sword Cultivation Academy lit up. When Bai had challenged Lin Bai, they had been by his side. If there was anyone who had the greatest chance of winning at this time, it would be Lin Bai. It's you. Lin Bai's expression was gloomy. I've been searching for you for a long time. I didn't expect you to come knocking on my door. The other disciples looked at each other in dismay. From the looks of it, Lin Bai and Lin Bai seemed to have a grudge against each other. I definitely won't let you run away this time. A red sun rose from behind Lin Bai. It was as if 2 suns had appeared in the sky, and the scorching temperature was so hot that it almost roasted everyone. The golden red light interweaved into a large net, enveloping Lin Bai within it. It was filled with densely packed saber lights and sword shadows. Lin Bai was hidden within it, like a venomous snake lurking in the dark. Suddenly, he delivered a fatal blow to Lin Bai from the back. Lin Bai hesitated for a moment. He did not summon the Ruo Shui sword, but only the one given to him by the Dean of Education. However, it was this half-hesitation that caused him to miss the target by an inch. The tip of Bai's sword brushed against the weakest part of the sword. Ding-dong! A crisp sound could be heard. The sword actually broke into 2 halves from the middle. When everyone saw this scene, they could not help but be shocked. They were momentarily dumbfounded, while Lin Bai laughed out loud. With such an arrogant tone, I thought you had a lot of ability, but it turns out that you are only SOSO. It was only one move, and he actually lost his weapon. How should he fight next? Someone could not help but ask, Senior Brother Bai, did he really defeat you last time? Compared to the other doubts, Bai's face was calm. He could clearly see that the sword was not used by Lin Bai often. The one who defeated him in the mystic realm was a wooden sword, which was even more memorable. Although they did not know why Lin Bai did not use it, he definitely had his reasons. Therefore, he only said, I believe him. Seeing Bai speak like this, it was obvious that he had a plan in mind. Even so, everyone's heart was still hanging in their throats. The rising sun brought along sword chi and pressed down fiercely, as if it wanted to crush Lin Bai's bones and flesh. Little Red. As Lin Bai's voice